All right, so good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. If you're joining us for the first time, and we do have a whole bunch of groups joining us for the first time today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Now, February is always a special month for us. We kick out all the men and spend the entire month showcasing and celebrating incredible women in science and exploration from across the globe. So thank you guys so much for continuing to tune in as we highlight such amazing people. And for many of you, you tuned in during our weekend epic Women Blaze Trails Fest. So this is one of the biggest things we've ever done. We had 50 programs in 3 days. All those sessions are on our YouTube channel now as big blocks, and we're slowly but surely putting them up as individual sessions. So do check that out. Literally any topic you are interested in, we had someone who talked about it. So it's a really great opportunity to learn from some of the coolest people in the world. And one of the people who joined us for that Women's Fest was Gracie Ermi. So she's joining us today again for a full-length epic talk, and you guys signed up in full force. We had 115 classrooms from, I think, 20 states and 5 provinces and some international destinations too register for this program. So welcome in wherever you're coming from around the world. It is so exciting to have you as we dive into learning to code to save whales. Coding is something that we're seeing in schools all over the globe right now. It's a big push to get more kids coding skills, and Gracie's going to show us how you can turn that sort of understanding and knowledge into really concrete action to protect and save species. So I'm really excited. I'm sure you guys are too, and I'm going to turn it over to Gracie to blow our minds. Gracie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. That is amazing to hear how many people are tuning in.
It's going to be a full house. I'm really excited, and all those groups can share questions on YouTube, so we're hopefully going to have a really fun Q&A session at the end too. Awesome. So yeah, dive right in. Take us away. I can't wait.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I can't believe how many of you are here listening from so many different places. That is so cool. So my name is Gracie. I'm a software engineer, which is what you call someone who writes code. You can kind of call them a lot of different things. Some people are called software developers, or sometimes I call myself a computer scientist because that's also what I am. But all that means I'm someone who writes code. And if you've written code before, that's amazing. If you've never written code before, that's also totally fine. I'm going to tell you about what I do, and you don't have to have any coding experience to understand what I'm talking about and see all the ways that you can apply those skills to conservation. So it's a really exciting job that I have, and coding is really how we write instructions that a computer can follow. So you're writing them in a way that the computer can understand, and then you can give those instructions to the computer and it will do cool stuff for you because of the code that you wrote. So it's a really amazing skill to have, and pretty powerful skill to have too. You can build so many cool things with code. So I am just really excited to tell you about how I'm using code to help protect whales, which is a use of code that I did not know existed before I started the job that I have now. So I'm excited to dive into it. Let's get started. So before I tell you about my job and one of the cool projects that I work on, I wanted to tell you how I got to this role in the first place and how I found myself working in technology. Because when I was growing up, when I was in middle school and high school, like I was in these pictures, I would not have believed you if you would have told me I would be working in the technology field today. I was really into a lot of different things in middle school and high school. I loved being in band. I played the saxophone for many, many years. I loved playing sports. I played on a lot of different sports teams. I have 5 siblings, so family was and is a huge part of my life. And I loved a lot of subjects in school, but technology was just really not one of the things that I was interested in. I didn't know anyone. There were no adults in my life who worked in the technology field, so I didn't really know what those jobs looked like. And it can be really hard to imagine yourself working in a job that you know nothing about. So that was one factor. But also, my schools didn't offer any coding classes when I was in middle school and high school. So I really never was given the opportunity to learn more about that, about coding. And I honestly don't think I would have taken those classes had they been offered to me, just because I had a lot of stereotypes in my brain that I had, gained from watching movies and TV shows and stuff about what people look like who write code. And I thought that you had to be someone who was really obsessed with technology and like that was your only hobby. And I had a lot of pictures in my head of, people coding alone in their basement. We've all seen those characters, I feel like, in movies. And I just didn't feel like I related to those types of characters at all. I didn't feel like I fit those stereotypes. And so it was just not a path that I considered for myself. But fast forward a little bit to college, and I went to Western Washington University. And at the time, I was thinking, when I started college, I was thinking maybe I would study math or something science related because I had a lot of really great science and math teachers in high school who really inspired me to want to learn more. And so, because of those interests in STEM subjects, I was really encouraged to take a computer science class, which is where I learned how to code for the first time. So I was 18, had never written any code in my life, did not know the first thing about coding. And before I even started this class, this computer science class that I was about to take, I was just terrified that I would be horrible at coding or that I would hate it. Because again, those stereotypes that I had built up in my head about who likes to code and who is good at code. But turns out all those stereotypes were not true at all. You can have any number of interests outside of technology, just like I have, and that doesn't really matter that doesn't have an impact on your ability to be good at coding and to build cool things. And you also, anyone, no matter what your background is, no matter what you look like, that none of that actually matters when you're learning to code. And I also really had great professors in those classes, my first few computer science classes, who taught me how many ways you can help people and help solve big problems with technology, which was what really drew me into studying computer science, because I wanted to help people and I wanted to solve big problems, and I had never really thought of technology as the tool that would help me do that. So once I started thinking about it that way, I was pretty much hooked. And I also, it wasn't just like something that I, snapped my fingers and I was like super amazing at coding. It was something that I really had to work at. It didn't come like super easily to me. I had to practice a lot to get good at coding. And I think that's the case with anything new that you learn. But with coding, it definitely takes a lot of practice, and that can really be frustrating sometimes as you're learning. So if you've ever experienced that, just know that you are not alone. And I think everyone struggles when they're first learning to code. But it gets easier, and then you learn all these cool skills to be able to build cool stuff. So I, at the end of college, got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in computer science and set off to solve big problems and to try to, make a difference in the world with those skills that I had gained in college. So that led me to the job that I have now. And I want to tell you about one of the cool projects that I get to work on, because I've gotten to work on a few different projects where we are applying technology to conservation, which was something that I didn't know anything about before I started this job. I did not even consider how many ways we can use technology in the conservation space. And our main goal with all these projects that I've gotten to work on is really to elevate and support all the amazing work that is already happening in the conservation space. Conservationists and wildlife researchers, they're doing amazing work already. And we are just trying to think, how can we use technology to really do some of the most tedious stuff that they have to do automatically for them, so that they don't have to spend as much time on that stuff and they can use that time to do even more amazing work. So one of those projects is this killer whale health metrics project, which has been really, really fun to work on. And to tell you about this project, I want to first introduce you to Nugget, who is, she's a southern resident killer whale. And killer whales, or orcas, you can call them either one. But the southern resident killer whales, they are a specific population of killer whales who live in the Pacific Northwest, specifically in the Salish Sea. And so they're pretty much, I'm based in Seattle, and so they're pretty much right in my backyard, which is really, really cool. And makes this project even more meaningful to me to get to work on it. And so Nugget and her family here, These are her daughters, Lapis and Jade, her son, Dakota, and then her grandson, Lazuli. So killer whales, orcas, are really amazing animals for a lot of reasons, but one of the coolest things about them, I think, is that they are really family oriented. So they stay with their families for pretty much usually their whole lives. And there's so many amazing things about them, but I think that's super cool. So Nugget and her family, they are 5 out of only about 74 of these southern resident killer whales that are left in the world. And so a lot of people in my area and beyond care a lot about these whales and care a lot about making sure that we protect them better and that we as people make better choices to benefit the whales and help them, grow their population numbers and be around for many, many, many generations to come. So some of the reasons why these whales are so endangered have to do with a few different factors. So first of all, they only eat salmon. So they're kind of unique among other killer whales. Other killer whales will eat seals and penguins and other creatures, but these whales only eat salmon. And for a lot of reasons, the salmon populations are not as large as they used to be. And so these whales struggle to find enough food to eat. And then another big reason why they're endangered is because of vessel and boat traffic. So anything from like a big, huge ship to a little boat that a family might be out in, all of those boats create a lot of noise and can impact how the whales, the southern residents, communicate with each other, and can also impact the area that they're able to look for food in. Because if there's a lot of boats, they can't be in that area, and so it kind of just shrinks their hunting ground. And the stress of the boat noise can also cause a lot of health problems in terms of not being able to have successful pregnancies and a lot of different other health concerns. So, people, we are really creating a lot of the issues for the whales. And so a lot of people are working hard to study the whales more and to come up with better solutions to protect them, including things that we all can do. Like if you ever want to go whale watching, instead of going out on a boat to whale watch, there are a lot of really good places you can whale watch from shore with some binoculars and still see amazing, wildlife out in the water. And another thing you can do is if you are ever out in a boat and you see any type of marine mammal, whales or seals or anything, if you see them, really resist the urge to go closer. Make sure you stay really far away because, again, the boat noise can really affect them. And then also, you just want to give them their space, even though it's tempting to go try to take a picture of them. It's good for everyone to just stay far away. So those are a few things we can do. But one group that's doing a lot of really great work to help the southern residents is Sea Life Response Rehabilitation and Research, which is another Pacific Northwest organization. And they are a group of marine mammal researchers who have been studying a lot of different types of marine mammals for many years now. But one of those types of marine mammals is the southern residents. And SR3, as we call them for short, this group of researchers, they've been doing really amazing work to study and protect the southern residents for many years now. And Dr. Holly Fernbach is the marine mammal researcher that I've gotten to work with the most from SR3. She's a really amazing scientist, and her team study the whales by going out and flying a drone over the water, taking amazing pictures of the whales. And then they use those pictures to basically do a health checkup of the whales without disturbing them at all. So it's really non-invasive. Their boat is far enough away that they're not anywhere near the whales. And then the drone is high enough in the air that it's not disturbing the whales at all. And then just from these pictures, they can estimate how healthy each whale in the population is. So no blood work that they have to do. They don't have to touch the whales at all. It's a pretty amazing technique that they use. And it results in really important information about each whale's health, including if their health is declining, and or if they can tell like if a whale is pregnant from this technique as well. So it's really, really cool science that they're doing. And where does my team come in? So I work with a bunch of technologists who you can see across the top of the screen here. And what we are trying to do is to, again, just elevate and support the great work that Dr. Fernbach and her team are already doing. And so one of the big challenges with the health assessments that Dr. Fernbach and her team are doing from these images, from the drone images, is that it just takes a really long time to do these health assessments. So first of all, they usually take thousands of pictures from the drone. And so there are a few months where the southern residents tend to be in the area where Dr. Fernbach is located. And so her and her team will go out during, usually it's like May and September. So they'll fly the drone for like all of May, basically almost every day when it's clear weather out. And they'll collect pictures every day. They have thousands of pictures then from just May. And then it will take them 4 months to process all of those pictures and, identify which whales are in each picture and find the best pictures of each whale, because whales are not posing for the pictures. They're just living their lives, rolling around, swimming, having fun down there. And so a lot of times the pictures have like water spray in them, or the whale is not perfectly flat, so the measurements can't be taken accurately. So they have to find the best pictures, and then they have to actually do the measurements, which are very manual, like line drawing and calculations. So that can take quite a while. And then finally, they have the health assessments that are used to inform the laws that we make about, like, regarding people's behavior around the whales, and to inform the public just about how the whales are doing, and that kind of thing. So it's a long process. And, my team and I thought, we can make some technology that can just speed this up a little bit, so that Dr. Fernbach and her team don't have to spend quite as much time doing all these very tedious and manual things to get these health assessments. So my team and I have written some code, and we use artificial intelligence. That's the type of technology that we are building using our code. And artificial intelligence is really how we get a computer to do something automatically for us. And usually it's using a lot of data to teach the computer to do something. So our artificial intelligence, for instance, we're teaching the computer to automatically identify which whales are in each photo, and to automatically estimate where in the photo the whales are, and estimate some of those body measurements that Dr. Fernbach and her team would need to draw manually usually. So we're using the computer to kind of estimate that stuff. All along the way, as the code is going to be used by Dr. Fernbach and her team, we make sure that the scientists are super involved in the process, and that they're able to correct anything that the computer does, able to double check everything the computer does to make sure that it's still very accurate, but just having the computer kind of along the way suggesting different things that that might need to happen, or making suggestions along the way, that so then the scientist doesn't have to spend quite as much time on the health assessments. So the code plus Dr. Fernbach or someone on her team creates a faster solution than and a better solution than just the code on its own, or just a wildlife researcher on their own. So so that's kind of what we're trying to build. And specifically what I've been working on is writing code to teach a computer to automatically identify which whales are in each photo. And so it's kind of like facial recognition, but for whales. And instead of using their faces to recognize who is who, we use what's called their saddle patch, which is this white, gray, heart-shaped patch on their back. And that patch is unique to each individual in the population. So it's kind of like their fingerprint. We can tell, if you're really familiar with the population, you can tell who is who by looking at the saddle patch. And so you all can be the marine mammal researchers now, and you can take a look at this picture on the left here with the blue box around it, and take a guess based on the saddle patch if you think it is blackberry, jade, slick, or calypso in this picture on the left. And as just a note, while you're thinking about that, these are not names that I gave to the whales. These are, the scientists will usually use, J27 and L18. They're more like numerical identifiers to describe them or to talk about them. But the community has given each whale in the population a name, like Blackberry or Jade, via a bunch of different like naming competitions and different sorts of methods for giving them names. So these aren't just like names I gave to them. These are their real names.
By the way, Gracie, the overwhelming majority of kids on YouTube say Calypso. They're like big on the Calypso train. So I don't know.
Nice.
That's correct.
Yes, you are all correct. Good work. Yeah, so it is Calypso. And yeah, so now I'm trying to teach a computer to do exactly what you just did and to try to guess who is who in these pictures. And how it will usually work is we're going to use the computer to kind of give the scientist maybe 5 options of who the computer thinks it most likely is. So then they can, of course, make that final decision of who it might be. But narrowing it down from 74 options to 5 options will ideally save them a lot of time in the end. So it's been a really fun problem to get to work on, for sure. So I want to get to your questions now, but I also want to leave you with a question from me, which is, what problem will you solve? So I talked about how, technology has allowed me to think about what problems I will solve, and it's kind of like my tool of choice that I use to solve big problems. And so I want to just emphasize to all of you that your ideas are really important and your perspective is unique. Nobody else has had the same experiences that you've had. No one has the same way of looking at the world that you have. And so the world really needs to hear what you have to say and what your ideas are so that we can solve these big problems that we have. And so as you work towards solving that problem that you want to solve, just remember that coding is a really useful tool that you might want to learn along the way as you go off and change the world. So thank you so much for listening, and I can't wait to answer all of your questions now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Gracie. That was an amazing presentation. Again, so many kids tuning in from all around the world. We've got kids in Wisconsin, Alabama, Ontario, and more. If you are a teacher and you haven't let me know where you're joining from in the YouTube chat, please do. We'd love to get a sense of where you guys are all coming in from today. We're about to dive in with questions. We've got some live classes I'm going to come to. If you're on YouTube, you can also share questions there. But I'll start with one from Libby joining us in Auburn, Alabama. And she's just started to learn to code using Java. And she's curious what languages you use and what your experience might be with Java.
Yeah, so I learned Java. I sometimes still use Java. I learned it in school, use it a lot in school. And then, yeah, occasionally we'll use it now, but mostly I use Python now in my work. And Python's my favorite language. So if you're looking for a new one to learn, maybe check out Python. But Java is a super useful one, used in a lot of different for a lot of different things. So that's a really good one to learn for sure.
It's funny you mentioned Python. We had Holly Boothroyd on from Microsoft Engineering not too long ago, and she mentioned how much she loved it too. So I think that there's a push to do this, guys. If you're keen on a language, check out Python. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to head to Miss McIntosh's class, and Miss McIntosh's group is joining us in. Let me just pull that up in a second. Oh, it's all over the place. We'll just bring them in, and we'll find out where they're from in a second. Miss McIntosh, welcome in. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for having us. We are from Toronto. That's where we're from. Toronto. Really nice to be halfway across the North America with you. So very cool. We have a few questions. We tuned into another event about whales and dolphins and how they communicate underwater. And they said that they a lot of the time put a tracking device, a suction cup device that doesn't harm the whale. So I just want to be clear, they're not using suction cup devices here. You are trying to determine who is who based on their markings and code to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And you're totally right. Yeah, that suction cup sort of tracking devices are used in a lot of different cases for a lot of different species. I think since this population is so small, and so many people care about them, like people are always on the lookout for them, and it's kind of just known where they are all the time. So we don't know so much need those tracking devices. But then, to figure out who's who in the group of them, we have to use their markings. And that's another area that a lot of people are looking into, especially if a drone isn't being used and you aren't looking from above at the animals. A lot of the times pictures are taken from like a boat of the side of the animal. And so a lot of different whales and dolphins will have like unique sort of notches in their dorsal fin on their back. And so that's how you can tell them apart. So yeah, it's an area that a lot of people are looking into to see and have been using for a long time to recognize who is who. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Thanks, Ms. McIntosh, for the question. We will come back for some more with you guys in just a minute. I'm going to go to Mr. Tunnard's class now, joining us in Oshawa, Ontario. If you have one for us, come on in. Hi, Mr. Tunnard.
Hi, thanks for having us on. So I've got a question from one of my students. We're in Ontario, and it's a grade 8 class. And let's see, I'm just reading it from here. Did they plan to only use the code for whales, or are they planning to adapt it for other endangered species? And if so, how do they alter the code and the process?
That's a great question. Yes. So we are hoping to adapt the code to hopefully other types of whales at the very least, maybe other types of marine mammals like seals or sea lions or other things in the water. We haven't necessarily thought about adapting to like other land animals or anything, but there's no reason, I guess, why we couldn't. So I think we'll kind of see which scientists are interested in using a tool like this, and then see what animals they study and kind of see where we go from there. But we definitely are wanting to open source this code that we've written so that theoretically anyone could use it and work towards adapting it to other animals. Yeah.
Fantastic question. If you didn't ask that, I was ready to ask it near the end of the broadcast. That's great. Just a note too, Gracie, if you want to come out of screen share so you can see us a little better and don't have to look through the screen, take your time and you can do that. Yes. I'll go into all our classes across Ontario and beyond to let me know where they're joining from. We have some questions about some of the specific animals you're showing. So in Mr. Clement's class in Windsor, they want to know how old Nugget is, if you know.
You know, I looked this up just the other day and I can't remember exactly how old she is. But you can look that up. It's all online. If you look up the southern resident killer whales, there's so much information about each of them. It's wild. So
we'll try to find that during the broadcast and see if we can get that answer.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. A question from Joe in Mount Orab, Wisconsin, and a whole bunch of other classes is, do you have a favorite kind of whale? Like of the things that you've ever studied? I know it's one that you're mainly studying, but any that jump to mind?
Well, so I do love killer whales, and I have loved them for a long time before I even started this project. Like as a kid, I loved them. I just think they're such awesome animals. So it was like extra exciting to get to work on this project. But I also love belugas. I would love to get to work on a beluga project. Really any whale. Yeah, they're such awesome. It's like wild to think that such huge creatures are just like living under the water out there, you know? Yeah.
Whaling's amazing. Every time we talk about whales, it really is mind-blowing to think that there's creatures like that are as smart as they are, as big as they are around all the oceans of the world. And they're increasing. It's a good conservation story that whales actually, because the ban of hunting on them happened a few decades ago, whale populations pretty much around the globe are going up, which is a really positive and a nice story to share. Yeah. One last question on our whale population, then we'll dive back in on some coding ones, I think. Ms. Brochu's class wants to know, what's the current orca population that you're studying? Like how many of them are there total?
Yeah, so there are only about 74 of them. So it's a pretty small population. But there were 2 babies born over the summer, so their numbers have increased even since just this summer. So that's really, really good news. And so hopefully that just continues.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Gracie. Let's dive back in with our live classes, and we'll take a few more from YouTube. We've got classes in California now, and again more across Ontario, so super exciting. Ms. McIntosh, down the street from me here in Toronto, if you have another question for us, come on in.
Sure, yeah. I have several. I'm trying to get my students to ask coding questions, but they're so interested in animals. So I think I missed that, but they said that the, oh my goodness, where is it here? Bear with me. Oh, you mentioned that the oldest orcas weigh the least. I didn't catch that, but is that true? The oldest orca, the matriarch you were talking about, Nugget there, does she weigh the least in her family?
Not that I know of. I don't know. Maybe I accidentally said that, but I didn't mean to say that if I did. Yeah.
Now, I've got up, again, Ms. McIntosh, if you want to ask another question, you certainly can. I've got up the Whale Museum, Meet the Whales and the Whole Population, so I'm going to bring this into a banner in a minute. But Ms. McIntosh, you have another question for us? Go for it.
Oh, I don't think my students can type quite fast enough here. How about, other than Java that you mentioned, any other like really great coding websites or platforms like for beginners that you would recommend?
Yeah. So, I mean, I love code.org. I think there are so many cool little like you can learn a bunch of different coding languages through little games and different coding challenges and stuff on there. I also, Girls Who Code has been putting out a bunch of really great coding from home activities, especially since we've all been remote, So they have a bunch of cool stuff on their website as well to learn different, building your own website sort of activities and making different games and all kinds of really cool stuff on there too. Yeah, there's so many good online resources. And so I think if you find something that you're interested in, or if you have an idea for something you want to build, there's like so many great resources out there to help you get there. So
there really are. One I'm going to recommend specifically for Canadian classrooms. So Kids Code Jeunesse, so I'm going to bring up their name on the bottom of the broadcast, is far and away the largest kids coding group in Canada. They've got centers in, I think, like 40 cities now, certainly Toronto, where you are, Ms. McIntosh. So amazing organization, constantly running workshops, really pivoted to digital stuff really well. So there's a lot of things going on right now. So do check them out. I also just found out Nugget's age. Nugget is 44 years old, and you can find out that and all the other things about whales right on the link that I just brought up on the bottom of the broadcast. Mr. Tunnard, I'm coming to you next. 4B, welcome in, guys. You just joined us live. That's awesome. If your teacher wants to let me know where they're joining from in their name there, that would be great and really helpful, but I will come to you guys. Mr. Tunnard, come on back in and ask us away.
Okay. Just sort of a direction for my students there. It's a grade 8 class, so they're looking at high school courses, and I have a lot of kids who are already very interested in coding. But I guess my question for you is really about, I know you do a lot of work with sort of role model mentoring for girls especially. Any sort of advice I know things change so quickly in terms of schooling, but any sort of advice in terms of pathway kids should be choosing, things that they can be doing other than learning code sort of on their own? Are there university programs or things that they should be looking towards that are specific that would maybe relate to a career or something similar to yours?
Yeah. So, my background is I have no training in like conservation or biology or anything of that sort. It's all computer science in terms of what I studied in school. And so I think, studying computer science, if you're looking at university programs, looking for computer science programs, while you won't get maybe if you want to do something with code and wildlife, you could absolutely study both things. But if you're not sure kind of what you want to do, I think computer science is a great option because we have technology around us all the time, right? And every field is using more and more technology every day. And so computer science, I always say, just kind of unlocks the door to you working in any field in the future. Like if I decided I, wanted to change careers, change jobs, I could go work in like healthcare tomorrow and build technology that is helping doctors like diagnose different diseases. Or I could decide I want to work in like the music industry, and I could go work for Spotify or something and be building technology that's helping people find music and listen to more music. So coding, really, you can combine it with like any other interest that you have and have a really cool career. So I think studying computer science is a great path to take. And yeah, you asked a lot of good questions in there. Just kind of other advice I would have, I guess, is to keep pursuing all the things. Really follow your passions. I felt a lot of pressure when I was studying computer science to kind of have technology be my life 24/7. It felt like a lot of my classmates were like coding in their free time, and that was their hobby and their school path and like everything about their life. But I had a lot of other interests, and I was like still playing music in college, and I was making sure to like I was a camp counselor in the summers instead of getting an internship at a technology company or something. And so I kept all of my passions sort of still incorporated in my life. And I think that really helped to lead me to where I am today because, you know, I'm getting to do so many cool things plus the coding stuff. So,
and that's really important. It's something that we keep hearing about from a lot of our speakers is the need to be a person first. I mean, it's so easy to think about a scientist or an athlete as only doing that thing. And I mean, whether it's hiking, whether it's sports, whether it's other extracurriculars, I mean, there's so many things that you can do and still be, you know, most passionate about one thing and do that, but not to the extent, oh dear, I can't even think of the word. Detriment of all those other interests and passions. Not what I'm looking for, but it works.
Yeah.
Let's head to our 4B class. Join us in Canada, Madame Jello's class. If you guys want to just demute your microphone and then come on up and ask a question, and then I'll take a few from YouTube after that. But welcome in, guys. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I see kids in a classroom. It's like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I know, you're all there.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was at 1:30, so we kind of arrived when you guys were talking.
Yeah.
So we don't really know what you guys are talking about right now.
That's okay.
And when grade 4, so sometimes the conversation could be a bit higher level. So
yeah, that's totally fine. What we'll do is I'll make sure you have the link later so you can watch the beginning of the broadcast. You can listen for the Q&A right now. If you do have any questions, you can let me know in the chat bar on the side, and then later on you can watch the full presentation if you'd like, okay?
Perfect.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, in lieu of that, then I'll take a few questions from YouTube. We've got Ms. Neely's class joining us in kindergarten. They want to know, why do boats affect whales, and how do you tell if they're male or female?
Great questions. Yeah. So boats affect whales because they make a lot of noise. So, you know, and especially underwater, noise travels a lot farther than it does in the air. And so even if a boat's kind of far away from the whale, they can still, the noise just travels farther, so it can affect them a further distance away. And whales also communicate underwater with noise. And so if the boats are too loud, then that's overpowering the whale's ability to communicate with each other. And you know, coordinate as they're hunting for things, or just find each other, you know, in the ocean, whatever whales are communicating about. So so that's they can impede sort of their ability to communicate. They also just having that stress of constant noise. Like you can think about if you had like some alarm, like if your smoke detectors ever started beeping at you because you need to change the batteries, having that beeping noise just like in the background of your life for even just one day, you know, before you change the battery, like that can really cause a lot of just like extra stress and like and just annoyance in your day. Yeah. And so imagine then you're a whale, you're in the water, and there's just constant boat noise all around you. That's just, it can build up a lot of stress in the whales, and extra stress leads to, you know, maybe they don't eat as much, or maybe they just have other, that causes a lot of like health concerns for them. So stress is not good for our bodies, pretty much is the gist of it. Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, we covered with Morgan Martin last week all about whale communication. So Eduardo and Mr. Pettix's class joined us in California. They asked about how whales communicate. You covered that and why boats are an issue. So you covered you killed so many birds with one stone there. That was great. Miss Champagne's class, grade 6s, joining us in Ottawa. They want to know, what is your favorite part about coding? Is there anything that really jumps out that makes it the best thing ever?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's so many cool things about coding. I kind of think of it as like a superpower, because you can really like solve so many problems. You can build like anything you can imagine pretty much with code. Not that technology is like the solution to everything. Of course, there's a lot of different things that, you know, how we use the technology and who's using the technology. There's a lot of different things that also need to happen on top of just building technology, but it can really empower a lot of solutions. And I think it's just so cool that I, you know, have these skills to be able to contribute in the way that I can through the code that I write. So, yeah.
Fantastic. A great question, Ms. Champagne's class. Mr. Pettix's class, we have another question from Juan in that class. They want to know, how long do whales live? We talked about Nugget being 44. Can you give us a sense of that?
Yeah. So I know, let's see. So there was one whale named Granny, who was a southern resident killer whale. And I'm pretty sure she was either the longest known living one or one of the longest ones. I think she was over 100 when she died. So they can live a really long time if we don't, harm them along the way. So yeah, they can have really long lifespans.
Yeah, so that's for killer whales. For some of the whales in the Arctic Ocean, we know that they can be over 210 years old. So they're one of the oldest animals on this planet. In fact, the largest large animal on the planet are whales, which is a very cool question. So thank you, Mr. Pettix's class. All right, looking for questions all sorts of the place. Miss Clark's class in Ottawa wants to know, here we go. Are all the code you write original code, or have you attached other apps and code and integrated it into your code?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Definitely a lot of like integrating existing tools that are out there. Coding is cool because like someone can build a tool for one specific thing, and then I can integrate that, into my code, like you asked in your question. So I don't have to like rewrite everything from scratch. We can all in the coding community kind of like work together, use different pieces that other people have built, and so it's a lot of using existing things and maybe applying them in a way that they haven't been used before. And then also writing some new code as well to do what we specifically are trying to do.
Yeah, cool question, guys. We're going to wrap up with one more from Miss Lazarus' class. They're in Toronto as well, grade 3s, and they want to know, is it stressful being a coder? How do you maintain or get over any stress? I think we've all been at the computer a little too long over the last year. So this advice might be very helpful for our students.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, I cannot look at another computer screen for another minute or I'm going to just lose it. So I definitely, it's definitely not stressful all the time. I want to be clear about that. A lot of the time it's fun and, it's kind of like solving puzzles. And so I really enjoy coding for the most part. But sometimes, we all get stuck. And if you've ever coded before, I'm sure you've had times where you just cannot figure out what is going wrong in your code. And that happens to me all the time too, even as a professional coder, right? So I'll make sure I take walks and take breaks from the code, because often you just need to kind of reset, take a minute away from it, and then you'll have a fresh sort of outlook when you come back. Just making sure I take time for me and to do the other things I like besides coding, like we talked about before. I knit a lot, so I tend to, that's a good way to like, at the end of the day, kind of shut my brain down from just having stared at a computer screen for a lot of the day, especially working from home. Everything is on the computer, as you all know very well. So finding other things, making sure you do all your hobbies and everything too.
I love that knitting is one of them. We've got like the old-fashioned hobby and the new-fashioned hobby, like together at once. All our kids can get outside today. Certainly in Toronto here, it's a beautiful day. It's sunny day. So when we finish this program, learn a lot, and then head outside, do something else, and hopefully have a nice day of it. I did lie about the last question because I love this question that came from Mr. Clements' class, and then we'll wrap up from there. So Mr. Clements' students want to know, can you clarify the difference between AI and machine learning?
Oh, I feel like this could be a debate forever, right? People have different ideas about what the difference is or how to describe them. But I kind of view machine learning as like one technique within like the greater artificial intelligence umbrella. So there's some like older sort of statistical methods that are used for artificial intelligence. And then there's machine learning. And then there's like deep learning, which is another sort of form of artificial intelligence. But it's just a technique, I would say, within artificial intelligence is how I would describe it.
That's a good answer for a complicated question. So I really appreciate that. Gracie, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thanks everyone for tuning in. So nice to get to talk to all of you.
We've got a few classes live. I know it's some individual teachers at home, but what we do to end every broadcast is I'm going to bring in our live classes. So Ms. Moyer's class, Mr. Tunnard, Ms. McIntosh, if you want to join me in really quickly saying a big thank you and goodbye to Gracie, you are all in. Thank you guys so much, and have a